The DTCC just opened its core settlement infrastructure to XRP depository receipts. Ripple quietly deployed over $3 billion in acquisitions to own the full institutional stack. And RLUSD crossed $1.54 billion in market cap in under 6 months. Most people are still watching the price chart. The institution stopped watching the chart a long time ago. Did you know DTCC settlement eligibility was already live for XRP before today? Drop yes or no below. This is not financial advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. Do your own research before making financial decisions. If this institutional coverage helps you understand where your capital is positioned, hit the like button. It helps reach more investors who need to see this. Now let me walk you through exactly what happened and what it means for the thesis you have been holding. Most investors have never thought about what happens after they click buy or sell on a stock. You see the price on your screen, you place the order, and the shares appear in your account. Behind that simple click is a massive infrastructure layer called the DTCC, the Depository Trust Company. It is the core securities depository that touches virtually every market participant in the United States. When you buy shares of a company, the DTCC moves those shares from the seller's account to yours. It has handled this plumbing for stocks, bonds, and traditional securities for decades, not an experiment. The backbone of Wall Street settlement, something changed. A company called RDC, working with Anchorage Digital, launched XRP depository receipts. A depository receipt is a financial instrument that represents direct ownership of an underlying asset. In this case, each XRP depository receipt is backed one-to-one by actual XRP, held in custody at Anchorage Digital National Association, a federally chartered digital bank. These receipts are structured as securities. They are fully fungible with the underlying XRP. Fungible means one unit is interchangeable with another. Just as $1 bill swaps for another, one XRP depository receipt swaps for the underlying XRP it represents. An institution can hold the receipt or the underlying XRP and get equivalent economic exposure either way. These XRP depository receipts are DTCC eligible. They settle electronically through the Depository Trust Company using the same straight-through processing that handles stocks, bonds, and traditional depository receipts. Straight-through processing means settlement happens automatically when a trade occurs. No manual intervention, no paperwork, no phone calls between counterparties. Institutions do not need a new back office. They do not need to train their settlement teams on blockchain wallets. They trade and settle XRP exposure through the exact same pipes they already use for every other security in their portfolio. Because once you understand why a pension fund manager cannot move retirement capital onto a public blockchain, and exactly what structure removes that barrier, you stop seeing the DTCC announcement as news. You start seeing it as the final piece of plumbing that was always going to arrive. One problem kept most large institutions off public blockchains until now. When you trade on a public chain, every position is visible in real time. Anyone can see what you are doing. If you are moving hundreds of millions or billions in value, that transparency makes you a target. Other traders can front-run you. Competitors can copy your positions. Most people assume this is purely a regulatory problem. It is not. It is a survival problem when you are managing other people's retirement capital. A pension fund manager cannot explain to a board of trustees that he moved retirement capital onto a public blockchain where the wallet address is visible to anyone with an internet connection. He needs a regulated security. He needs a federally chartered custodian. He needs settlement on the same systems his auditors already understand. The DTCC has stated publicly that it is on a full-time mission to tokenize U.S. capital markets. They said that by acting together with industry participants and clients, they create an ecosystem built around the core power of blockchain rails. Their ability to drive standards matters because they touch virtually every market participant, which positions them to drive the change that is coming. The XRP ledger is positioned inside this transformation. The public record shows the XRP ledger is a pre-approved blockchain to work within this system. Pre-approved means already integrated into the settlement framework. Not a pilot, not a test network. Production-grade plumbing that institutions can use today. Anchorage Digital is not a startup in a gray zone. It is a federally chartered digital bank meeting the same supervisory standards as traditional national banks. Combined with the depository receipt structure, this gives institutions something they have never had before with digital assets. Exposure to XRP through a regulated security wrapper, custodied at a federally chartered bank, settled on the same rails they use for every traditional holding. The friction is not being reduced. For these participants, it is being eliminated. And when friction disappears for institutional capital, the window for informed retail capital narrows. The window narrows because of plumbing, not because of hype. But this is the part almost nobody is sitting with. Settlement rails are only useful if institutions can access the full range of services they need to move capital. That is where Ripple's acquisition strategy matters. Over the past several years, Ripple has completed acquisitions totaling over $3 billion. Each one fills a specific gap in institutional infrastructure. In 2023, Ripple acquired Medico for $250 million. Medico provides bank-grade custody technology. That acquisition now underpins Standard Custody, which Ripple also acquired in 2024. Standard Custody operates under a New York Department of Financial Services Limited Purpose Trust Company charter. This charter is widely regarded as the gold standard for stablecoin regulation globally. It requires continuous state-level supervision comparable to traditional regulated financial institutions, strict consumer protection requirements, reserve standards, and redemption protocols. Things you do not get with offshore stablecoin issuers. In 2025, Ripple acquired Hidden Road for $1.25 billion. Hidden Road is now Ripple Prime, a prime brokerage that clears trillions of dollars annually. Prime brokerage is a service bundle institutions use to borrow securities, access leverage, and manage counterparty risk. If you are a hedge fund or an asset manager, you need prime brokerage relationships to operate at scale. Ripple Prime provides that infrastructure directly. Ripple also acquired Rail for $200 million. Rail focuses on stablecoin-powered payments within global business-to-business flows. G-Treasury, acquired for approximately $1 billion, provides corporate treasury management infrastructure designed for Fortune 500 companies. In 2025, Ripple added Palisade, which builds advanced wallet and custody technology. The result is end-to-end control of value movement. Instead of an institution going to 4 separate companies for custody, treasury, prime brokerage, and payments, Ripple builds a custom solution for exactly what that institution needs. This creates a different foundation than existed in 2017 or 2018. Back then, XRP delivered nearly 350 times returns based on early network momentum alone. Bitcoin returned 14 times. Ethereum returned 100 times. XRP's price increase was roughly 24 times steeper than Bitcoin's. And this happened before Ripple completed any of these acquisitions. The infrastructure was not in place. Today it is. The network effects that drove early price appreciation now sit on top of regulated custody, prime brokerage, and treasury infrastructure. Now here's where things get serious for the stablecoin migration. Since launching in December 2024, RLUSD has grown to over $1.54 billion in market cap. It has broken into the top 10 alongside players like PYUSD. RLUSD is issued by Standard Custody and Trust Company, the Ripple subsidiary with that New York Limited Purpose Trust charter. It maintains 100% backing through US dollar deposits and short-term US Treasury bonds. Every RLUSD token has a direct claim on cash and government securities, not an algorithmic stablecoin, a regulated deposit instrument. This matters because the regulatory framework is shifting. The Genius Act is setting new standards, and capital is increasingly moving from offshore stablecoins toward regulated options. USDT dominance dropped from 71% to under 60% last year. USDC climbed to nearly 25% market share. On North American exchanges, regulated stablecoin usage surged to almost 46% since the Genius Act passed. Capital is consolidating into trusted regulated stablecoins. RLUSD is sitting directly in this migration path. The market structure is also shifting in a way most retail investors have not processed yet. Exodus CEO J.P. Richardson has pointed out that institutions are accelerating their crypto participation this year even as retail pulls back. Historically, retail FOMO has driven every cycle. This time, retail has gotten frustrated and left while institutions step in. They are playing a different game. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse was recently named Northern California's Business Leader of the Year by the Harvard Business School Association, not a crypto-native award. Recognition from one of the most established business institutions in the world. When Harvard Business School recognizes a blockchain CEO for general business leadership, the signal is about mainstream credibility, not niche technology. And this is where the story becomes dangerous to dismiss. For someone who spent 30 years building savings and wants to leave something behind for children or grandchildren, this infrastructure build-out matters in a specific way. The question is not whether XRP will repeat its historical returns. The question is whether the financial system that retirement assets move through will run on these rails in 5 years. A grandparent who has spent 3 decades building a nest egg does not need to get rich. They need infrastructure that their accountant, their lawyer, and their financial advisor already understand. DTCC settlement and NYDFS charters are exactly what those professionals understand. If pension funds, corporate treasuries, and prime brokerage accounts settle through XRP-linked infrastructure as standard procedure, understanding this infrastructure is not speculation. It is understanding where the plumbing is being laid before your peers realize it. There is one more development that has not been fully explained in mainstream coverage. At Paris Blockchain Week, Boundless and Ripple announced that zero-knowledge proofs are coming to the XRP ledger. This technology allows anyone to prove a transaction is valid, funded, and compliant without revealing the amount, the sender, or the receiver. 4 major global financial institutions have already signed up for this feature. Their names have not been disclosed, but the combination of DTCC settlement eligibility, zero-knowledge privacy, and Ripple's full acquisition stack suggests the next wave of institutional onboarding is not theoretical. It is scheduled. Now let me pull this all together. Because these threads are not isolated stories, they are the same story from different angles. The DTCC did not announce a pilot program. It made XRP depository receipts eligible for the same settlement pipes that handle stocks and bonds. Ripple did not announce a single product. It acquired over $3 billion of infrastructure spanning custody, prime brokerage, treasury, and payments. RLUSD did not launch as an unregulated experiment. It launched under the gold standard of US stablecoin oversight and grew to $1.54 billion in under 6 months. And the Genius Act is actively shifting capital from offshore stablecoins into regulated onshore options. The XRP ledger sits at the center of this. It is the pre-approved blockchain for DTCC settlement. It is the native ledger for RLUSD. It is the infrastructure layer that Ripple Prime, Standard Custody, and the acquisition stack all connect to. When you look at each development in isolation, the convergence is easy to miss. When you look at them together, the convergence is the only story worth telling. What you are watching is the slow integration of digital settlement rails into the existing financial system. The institutions are not betting on a price chart. They are betting on plumbing. They are positioning for a world where value moves across borders through regulated custody, prime brokerage, and treasury infrastructure that settles on the same back-office systems they already use. This is why institutional capital is arriving while retail is frustrated. Retail investors look at price action. Institutions look at custody charters, DTCC eligibility, and prime brokerage integration. They are playing a different game on the same board. And their game has a longer timeline because it involves board approvals, compliance reviews, and counterparty agreements. But once those agreements are signed, the capital does not move in and out based on social media sentiment. It moves in and stays. And what happens next changes everything for the patient long-term investor. Your retirement accounts, your pension funds, your family legacy assets do not move quickly. They move when the infrastructure is proven, regulated, and familiar. That is exactly what is being built. The infrastructure thesis you have been holding is not speculative anymore. It is observable. You can see the DTCC eligibility. You can see the acquisition totals. You can see the RLUSD market cap growth. You can see the regulatory shift in Washington. These are not rumors. These are public filings, public announcements, and public market data. That leaves one question worth sitting with. Ripple CTO David Schwartz recently made a public statement that caught the community's attention. He said there are NDAs around business agreements, but they are not earth-shattering. He said 99% of what you see is what you get. He said there is no secret plan, no government conspiracy, and no hidden agenda that will suddenly change everything. Why would the person who knows more about Ripple's internal operations than almost anyone choose this exact moment to tell the public that the real story is the visible story, not the hidden one? Think about what that actually means. The infrastructure has become too large to hide. The DTCC integration is publicly documented. The $3 billion in acquisitions are all on the public record. The RLUSD growth figures are reported. The regulatory frameworks are being written in public hearings. When Schwartz says there are no secrets, he is not managing expectations downward. He is pointing at the visible record and saying it is enough. The people who have been waiting for a reveal that changes everything overnight may be missing what the visible record has already shown. The convergence happened incrementally, publicly, and across multiple jurisdictions. It is still happening. The institutions positioning inside this infrastructure are not doing so on the basis of a hidden plan. They are doing so on the basis of DTCC eligibility, federally chartered custodians, New York Trust Company charters, and $1.54 billion in regulated stablecoin circulation. After everything we covered today, which single fact surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening, go ahead and like it. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Share this with someone in your circle who is only following domestic crypto news and has no idea what is happening globally. David Schwartz said 99% of what you see is what you get. He was not managing expectations down. He was pointing at the visible record and saying it is enough. The investors who read the filings instead of the rumors already knew that. Stay informed, stay positioned. I will see you in the next video.